my day, you are my night.
Well, the first song on my first record I put out is called Grace. And that whole song was inspired by, well, actually the Gospel of Luke. And in the Gospel of Luke, specifically the character of Peter. And reading through that gospel and seeing him and actually seeing myself in him. I grew up very Christian home, and I was leading worship by the time I was in junior high, and in ministry and kind of in student leadership and all that. And so I had some really, really great opportunities. But I think with that and just with who I am came this very real realization of my own unworthiness to be there, and my own kind of sin, and just kind of always asking God, like, Lord, why would you even want to use me? Why this? Why that? I'm just so unworthy, and kind of listening to the lies of the enemy, just letting him just condemn me instead of letting the Lord convict me. You know what I mean? And I think when I was reading through, I remember being 16, I was reading through the Gospel of Luke, and the character of Peter stood out so much to me because he was this guy that Jesus saw so much potential in. He was this guy that Jesus kept on for 3 years. He discipled him, and he taught him, and he showed him signs and wonders, and he spoke to him, and I'm sure he hung out with him and ate him and laughed with him, and Peter still he would say these great things, and the next day or an hour later he would totally do the opposite, and it reminded me so much of myself. Even when you read that incredibly sad story, when Peter, Jesus says, hey, you guys, someone's going to deny me 3 times. Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows 3 times, and Peter's like, Jesus, I'll never deny you, and later that night, because of fear and because of pride, just the servant girl comes up to him, and he's like, and he totally denies that he knows Jesus, he denies that he follows him, and then you see, it says they meet eyes, and he just weeps bitterly and runs away. And I just saw myself in that as a songwriter and as a worship leader, just doing my best to write these songs and to live these songs out, but sing these songs like, Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul, and stuff like that. But then just even that day, just living differently, and just realizing, gosh, Lord, I'm just so unworthy of this. But then because I was so impacted by that character of Peter, I read through the book that he wrote, 1st and 2nd Peter, and it's so amazing to see the difference in Peter and the gospel and then in 1st Peter, because he gives this, he says, be ready to be in season and out of season, always be ready to give a defense for the hope that is in you. And it's so cool to hear that heart coming from this guy who just to young girls was afraid to say that he knew Jesus, you know what I mean? And then all because of the grace of God and through Jesus affecting his life and Jesus changing his life, he got to this place of realization of what is important, and that there's so much courage and there's so much strength and there's so much grace in the relationship that we share with Jesus. And so it's so cool to see at the end of even the book of John, where it talks about that awesome confrontation that Jesus has with Peter after Jesus comes back to life, and they eat together. He's like, Peter, do you love me? And Peter's like, Jesus, you know that I love you. And he says, well, then feed my sheep, and it's just that re-enlistment, in the army, just like, Peter, I know you denied me, and I knew you were going to, but that doesn't make any difference because I want to use you, and I see potential, and you just surrender to me, And so that's when I wrote this song called Grace, and it's has a lot of allusions to that story of Peter. It talks about, the sky is gray and the light is far, the seas are rage within my heart. I turn my sight to the crashing waves, and I cry in the night just to be saved. And it's all about, grace. I call your name. Won't your smile fall over me? Just kind of that allusion to Peter, walking out on the water, not having the faith to run, but realizing we'll never have enough faith. It's all about the grace of God that supplies what we need.